In our gospel reading today, Jesus tells his disciples about a widow who faithfully and repeatedly goes to a powerful judge to demand justice. Justice against her opponent. The badgered judge finally gives in and grants the requested justice, and her life is changed. And Jesus uses this parable to teach his disciples about faith and what faith looks like. Now I wonder, what does he mean by that parable? Is he expecting a faith that badgers and nags, or a trusting faith? And if so, what does that look like? And I wonder if it looks like an incident that happened to me years ago. When I was a very young teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing, I was passionate about that job and I was driven. And it was then, and it still is, even today, my conviction that every child has the right to learn language and as soon as possible. But way back then, in the day, there were no early intervention programs. So it was pretty normal for a child to come at age 4 or 5 to school for the first day with minimal or even no language. And that perfectly described my little student. And I'll call him Johnny, that catch-all name Johnny. Well, Johnny entered pre-kindergarten late in the school year, and his attendance was inconsistent. But he was smart and he absorbed language like a little sponge. And as the end of the school year approached, I made phone calls and I sent home letters so that Johnny could be pre-registered for the fall and on that bus the first day of school. Mom did not respond. So as the last few weeks of school approached, in May, my supervisor and I decided to expand our efforts. We would hunt down that mom and get her signature before that last day of school, and I was the designated hunter. I would go to her and I would get those signatures. So, I drove to the address listed in the school records. Mom did not live there. However, at that home, I was given another address where she might be. Mom was not at that home either. She always seemed to be one home ahead of me. Now, some people might have given up at the third, fourth time, but remember me, I was driven. I was going to save that little boy. And as I knocked on yet another door, a young teenage girl hesitantly opened the door, and when she learned that I was there to help little Johnny, she gave me the most beautiful smile, and she told me to go to another house tomorrow at noon. She was sure that Mom would be there. In fact, she was positive. So, the next day, at noon, with that paperwork clutched in my hand, I knocked on the door and waited until the door opened very slowly, not by Johnny's mom, but by a woman with a very puzzled expression on her face. I introduced myself and I began my spiel and read no warmth in that woman's expression. Then a voice piped up in the background saying, "Oh, that's Johnny's teacher. I told you about her. She's coming to see, and she is here to see Johnny's mom." Then the door quickly opened, and I saw that the voice belonged to that young girl, that helpful young girl from the day before. So I thanked her, and as instructed by that lady, I sat quietly in the parlor, waiting for Johnny's mom to appear. Now, as I sat waiting, I looked around the room and I thought it was rather unusual for a parlor. There was no couch. There was no easy chairs, no rocking chair. In fact, it had several small, intimate tables for two spread around with a lit candle on top. At noontime, it was dim. There were men wandering around. Didn't look much like a home to me, but whatever. And And as soon as Mom came down those stairs, those papers were signed and I was out the door. And as I walked down the porch steps of that huge house with the many bedrooms, it began to dawn on me where I had been. That I've never claimed to be the sharpest crayon in the box. But it began to dawn on me where I had been, and that place I had just left, and where the teenage girl from before, she was still there. Man, what a story I had to tell. I would tell anybody who would listen all about how I had persisted, and I made sure those papers were signed, all so that little Johnny could get on the bus that first day of school, and he did. What an awesome and dedicated teacher I was, just like the widow in today's gospel. I had faith that I could change that life for that little boy. Maybe so. But did you notice that in today's gospel, Jesus did not limit his parable to just an example of persistence in faith? Instead, he ended his parable with this question. Jesus asked his disciples, and I bet he looked him in the eye when he asked them. He asked his followers this question. So when the Son of Man returns, will I find faith on earth? He asked. Now previously, in Luke 17:21, Jesus had told the disciples that the kingdom of God was already here, in their hearts, in their actions. So, I think Jesus was really asking this question. What would he find in the hearts of his followers when he returned? In other words, I think what he asked is this. Would he find the kingdom of God in their hearts, in our hearts, in my heart? And I'm not sure what the kingdom of God looks like, but I'll guess that it includes mercy and grace and love, definitely God's love. And I think it also includes justice, like Jesus told us in that parable. Justice for the powerless, justice like the widow received, for a change in life, for something better. And now, I wonder about that little story that I just told, the story about little Johnny. And I began to wonder, maybe I was not the hero of that story after all. Why? Because to tell the truth, I was just doing my job. He was my student, I was his teacher. So maybe the true hero of that story was that little teenage girl who on faith took me at my word that I was there to help Johnny and nothing else. Maybe she was the hero, the one who truly had the kingdom of God in her heart. After all, it was her faith and her willingness to act on it that made the change, a powerful change for that little boy. Not only did he get to school on that first day, we were finally able to prove negligence on the part of the mother, and Johnny was removed from the home where at age 7, he was already the primary babysitter for his younger siblings. And eventually he was adopted by a friend of mine, a woman of faith. Now that little boy received justice, a better life, not because of me, but because of the actions of that teenage girl. She could have protected herself and kept quiet, doing nothing, but she did not. She acted, and she initiated the change in that little boy's life. I don't know what was in her heart, but I wonder if on that day so many years ago, I wonder if Jesus showed me what the kingdom of God looked like right there in the actions of that child, of that girl. And I hope and I pray that when Jesus looks me in the eye, when he looks all of us in the eye, as he surely will, peer